Once again, welcome to our class for the experimental psychology. I am Professor E, Professor Ezri, and we will be discussing chapter 4 for this subject, no, experimental psychology, PRC 107. This is a major subject for this course, BS in psychology. So this will be uh, about alternatives to experimentation, surveys, and interviews. In the last chapter, we have described non-experimental designs. So we have this case study, phenomenological study, field study, and archival study. So now we will try to know and understand. Now, as an objective of this presentation, we will try to know, to understand, to be familiarized with the various types of service and interviews that we will be using instead of experimentation, because again, not all the time there is a necessity, or or there is a need to use experimentation, especially if we are just going to observe phenomenons or phenomenon that are naturally occurring in their own environment. So in this topic, we will be discussing survey research, constructing surveys, measuring responses, important considerations for survey items, collecting survey data, evaluating surveys and survey data, sampling, probability and non-probability sampling. So bear with me because this will not take long, because this is just a short presentation with just a short coverage of topics. Now, what is the relationship of a sample to its population? I already discussed this with my other subjects because some of us are confused between sample and population. Now, the population is the entire or the bigger portion, or I mean, not the portion, the bigger number of your population or your respondents or your participants. For example, you intend to know the level of anxiety amongst the psychology student of a certain school. So your population are all of the psychology students. Now your sample is a portion, and there are ways on how to get your sample. Now, in selecting subjects, it is an important part of any research regardless of its design. A population is consists of all people, as what I have explained earlier, animals or objects that share at least one characteristics. And then a sample is a subset of the population, of the interest, the population we are studying or we intend to study. Now, what are the two advantages of probability sampling over non-probability sampling? Now, a probability sample is more likely to represent the population or the external, or it will talk about the external validity than a non-probability sample. So if we will use a probability sample, it will represent the population. It means that the external validity of your research when you will use probability sample is there's a probability or possibility that it will be high on external validity because it will represent the population itself, the sample that you used when you that you get when you use probability sample. Second is we know the exact odds of members of the population being included in our sample. This tells us whom the sample represents. So it's a good sample of your population, and you will you will be confident that the sample you get is a good representation of your entire population. I hope that's clear. Now, which are the main probability sampling methods? We have simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, stratified random sampling, and we also have cluster sampling. Now, for the simple random sampling, it is the most basic form of probability sampling in which a portion of the whole population is being selected. Now, you randomly select a portion of your chosen population. So that is how you conduct, or you get your sample through simple random sampling. Now, number two, systematic random sampling. All members of the population are known or can be listed in an unbiased way. And a researcher may select every nth person from the population. For example, you have 500, 500, 500 total person listed in your population, and then you only need 50. You only need 50. So I think you need to get the every fifth person or 10th person, I think, the every 10th person in your list to get your 50 samples. I hope that makes sense. Now, you have stratified random sampling. Stratified random sampling are used class when you have subgroups inside your population. For example, you have the psychology students as your population, and the subgroups is that there are first year, second year, third year, and fourth year students. Now, in order to obtain that, you have to calculate how many students you are going to take from the first year, second, third year, and fourth year. So there is also a solution, entire formula for that. Now, in identifying that so that you may have a perfect representation of all the subgroups in your population. So that is the qualification for us to use stratified random sampling. Now, cluster sampling naman is that it is used with a very large population. Mag 500,000, 100,000, million population ka na. So you really need to cluster, to make clusters of your populations. And out from those clusters, you select samples. Still randomly, okay? Because that's the nature of probability sampling. Now, which are the main non-probability sampling methods? We have four main non-probability sampling methods. It includes quota sampling, convenience, purposive, and snowball sampling. Now, we have quota sampling. Researchers select samples through predetermined quotas that are intended to reflect the mix of the population. For example, you have a formula, and then you only select your researchers based on your quota. So regardless of the randomization of your selection, as long as it reaches the quota of your sample, then it's enough for quota sampling. While convenience sampling, known also as accidental sampling, is that if your population are all psychology students, and then you use convenience sampling, so you will just select those participants who are convenient to you or who are available to you. So that is convenience sampling. While purposive sampling, on the other hand, this is used when non-random samples are selected because the individuals reflect a specific purpose of the study. For example, you have a set of qualification characteristics of your characteristics that you want to study. For example, you want to seek the you want to know the level of emotional quotient of the top performing students in your class. So of course, you will select those top performing students of your class for your for the purpose of your study. That is how purposive sampling works. And lastly, snowball sampling. Now, snowball sampling, this is used when the researcher locates one or a few people who fit the sample criterion and asks these people to locate or lead them to additional individuals. So, kaya siya tinawag na snowball kasi if you already have selected or selected few people, no, who fits to your criterion, you will ask them. It's like a ball. It's like a running ball, and whenever who gets stopped, or whoever gets the ball when it's stopped, yan yung parang idea, no, ng snowball sampling. Whoever are convenient to those sample criterion na you have selected, that will be enough. Those individuals will be enough. So I hope those are those concepts are clear. Again, no, for this chapter, we have discussed the surveys and interviews, and we have discussed the survey research. We have the constructing surveys and how to construct surveys, measuring responses, important consideration for survey forms, collecting survey data, evaluating surveys and survey data, sampling, probability sampling, and non-probability sampling. I hope that you have learned from this recorded class, recorded discussion class, and kindly prepare for your assessment for this. Thank you so much and have a great day. Goodbye.